Hello, this is David Braun, and welcome to the AVT website. This video is the first in a series of videos that I'm going to call Why Not? And it's meant to be to address issues that are a little bit future thinking and work towards the evolution of the appraisal process, step by step. Now, I want to mention a quote that I really like. I'm not sure who said it, so I'm going to have to look it up, and in a later video I will give that person credit, but it's not the main thing. I want you to know I didn't make it up. But the quote goes something like this: the reason people often get lost in thought is because it's unfamiliar territory. Now, I love that, and that's one of the kind of ideas that prompt me to have something like a why not set of videos, because we want to think about things, because when we're busy praising, we often just don't have time. So let's start here. A couple of years ago, I heard a chief appraiser for a large lender state that the accuracy of AVMs have improved tremendously over the past 5 years, but there has been little improvement in appraisals. Since the 1930s, appraisers have recognized the limitations of single point in time value opinions. Okay, nothing new about this, but since the 30s, we still haven't done a lot about it. Now, there's been some recent articles kind of pushing this issue in different ways. One of them was Re-Engineering the Appraisal Process by Joan Trice. Another one was Price versus Fundamentals: From Bubbles to Distressed Markets, and that was by Fanning, Blazjack, and Mann. That was published in the Appraisal Journal. And then Ed Pinto of the American Enterprise Institute wrote a nice article on Re-Engineering the Appraisal: A Return to Fundamentals. So the reason I'm mentioning these articles is for the typical appraiser to understand that there's always appraisers working towards evolving and improving the appraisal process. It's ongoing. Now, it's stifled quite a bit by a few things. Number one is we work within a legal system. Even if today every appraiser agreed to do something, we often have to wait for a law to be changed. But when the law is ready to change, the appraiser should have that answer. It shouldn't be the legislatures putting together our concepts. We should have our concepts ready. So we've always got to be looking ahead. And so basically, a value at a single point in time is not a solution that matches the problem of an underwriter making a 30-year loan is faced with. Well, okay, so that's all basic stuff. Now, we get up to value versus price. When I read the article, one of the articles mentioned, it talked about the difference in value and price. And one of the authors, George Mann's, a friend of mine, and I began to work with him, and we worked over about a 6-month period just studying value versus price. I was surprised to find out that in the very first appraisal journal, printed back in 1930, there was an article in there that addressed this. And in the appraisal journal since that time, I'm thinking there's between 20 and 30 articles that are on this very subject. I researched personally, George and I did at least 20 of those. Now, let me say that value and price are two different things, okay? Price is what a market sets. Price is what a market mechanism sets, and it's usually a point in time. Value, on the other hand, is what you get. It's not what you pay, it's what you get. You'll oftentimes hear stockbrokers say that Coca-Cola stock is undervalued. So what are they saying? They're saying if it's undervalued, they're saying the price that the market setting is too low. It's worth more than that, so now's a good time to buy. So when we have something like the concept of market value is really an oxymoron, because markets don't set value. They set prices. Now, when we use the term market value, which is incorrect, we immediately define it correctly as a price. Okay, so our definitions cover it, but I don't know why, when you think about it, why are we calling it a market value anyway? It should be market price as of a certain day. Another term that's thrown around a lot is the desire to have a loan that is fully collateralized over its term. Okay, that's tough. Okay, because when you're looking at a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan, basically you're saying the price will never fall below the value or the payoff. I'm still back on price and value, but we're really saying that the value of the property, or the price it will bring, is greater than its payoff for the entire term of the loan. So we'll ask this question: do current appraisals retard a market's ability to correct itself? Now, the National Home Builders Association and NAR have pointed out that they lose a lot of deals because of low appraisals. Now, it doesn't mean the appraiser's wrong, but could it be a fact? Could it be that the appraiser is appraising on the past, therefore when they give a value, they could be a little bit lower than where the market really wants to be? If the market's trying to go up, but appraisers won't let it go up, then appraisers begin to make the market. And that's an old concept too. That question always is, do markets run free, or is it basically controlled by the appraiser? Now, can the appraiser provide additional information that will aid lenders in underwriting? Now, say it again. Can the appraiser provide additional information that will aid lenders in underwriting? And I personally am looking for evolutionary steps, a step at a time, as opposed to we're gonna suddenly fix this whole thing. I don't see us fixing this whole thing. I see us more, keep taking steps to improve. Now, although George Mann, who's worked with me on this project, interest rested in the concept of value, he encouraged me to pursue ways in which the appraiser could provide new types of information to lenders. He reviewed these proposed concepts for validity and consistency. Okay, here's another saying: some minds are like concrete, thoroughly mixed up and permanently set. Okay, so what tools and concepts can appraisers provide to lenders which we are not currently providing? And when we think about maybe having some parameters or goals in what we're trying to do, whatever we do, it must be objective. Two appraisers should reach the same conclusion. Additional work, the additional work of any of this will be cost effective in the long run. Regulators can write and enforce the regulations. Does not interfere with the natural market operations that are sustainable. In other words, if the market's going up, just because it's going up does not mean that's a bad thing. It may be time for a market to go up. It may be correcting itself and going up. Maybe some new plants have opened, and we don't want to provide information to lenders that prevents the market from expanding when it's supposed to expand. But we would like to provide the market with information that prevents the market from way overheating and ends up in a terrible bubble. Number 5, must be market specific. In other words, it's different in each market. It's not the same across the country. Should consider depreciation of improvements. Should consider that land has more risk than improvements. Should be counter-cyclical in nature. And that gets back to the NAR and the Home Builders Association now. It should be something that when we give our value opinion, or as I say, if it's a price, and I'm going to use value because that's what you're used to hearing, but when we give our price opinion, it should be something in a way that helps the market It works with the market in correcting itself. Should be kind of counter-cyclical. Like right now when we're down, it should allow lenders to loan a little more. When the markets are red hot at the top of the market, which we're going to look at in a minute, then it should cause lenders to loan a little bit less than they normally would. Number 9, should be based on net realizable collateral, not market value or what I call market price. Should be based on net realizable collateral. In other words, why does a lender need a loan to value ratio? Except for like credit ratings and things like that. Instead of giving almost a price, which we give minus closing costs and a few things that we then call it a value, basically, why don't we start just giving the bank the net realizable collateral value, or the net realizable collateral? Just leave the value off. Let's talk about net realizable collateral. Now, I'm not going to read all of this because I want to get through some other stuff in this, but you have the pause button, so you can pause it and read it, but we will read the first part. What is NRC? It's the market price less the costs associated with holding costs during the anticipated marketing period, all selling costs, like sales commissions related to the disposition of the property, and 3, the cost of funds during the anticipated market period. So basically, it's what the bank actually expects to get by the time they take the property back. I didn't add foreclosure costs in. Those could be added in. This is I have not got any of this set in stone. I'm just going in a direction, and I think that if more people jump in on this, we'll be able to decide for things like should there be an amount for a foreclosure cost be figured in, or is this enough? Okay, you can read this over, but maybe appraisers should be giving the net realizable collateral. And collateral, when you think about price and value, collateral is what the bank can get when it puts it on the market. So whenever we use the word collateral, we should be thinking price, market price. Okay, now that's versus value, and there's a big place for value in the appraisal profession. That's probably going to be for things like someone comes to you, investors, and they want to invest in something. And then instead of giving them just a price, you're going to turn around and give them what you think the value is. So we still need a definition for value, and I hope I have time to jump back on that, and George and I can get back on that, and we can work together to give a definition of value that an appraiser could use when doing work and providing information to investors. All right, now let's talk about cycles. One of the things that appraisers know a whole lot more about today than they did 10 years ago are market cycles. Economists have charted all the way back from the 30s, some of them I think all the way back before that, value prices, and there's a definite cyclical motion over time up to the present. Now, when we think about a market cycle, we might look at it in 8 phases. At 1 would be a correctionary phase where the value's been too low and it comes up. And this black line's probably more the long-term line, long-term value. Then 2, it's stable, but then the market tends to overheat and the market expands in 3, begins to level off in 4. It corrects itself back down to this baseline in 5. 6, it stays steady, but 7, the market cools off too much and values fall too low, and then they level off, and then they go back and start the process all over again. Now, if we understand the concepts of markets, and if we believe that the probability is that we'll follow some of these market patterns, then there might be information we can provide to the underwriter so they can consider more than just a point estimate in time. Now let's look at this. What I've set up is the appraisers found the net realizable collateral to be $250,000. The land to value ratio is 30% because we're going to try to work this in because the basic land in this past cycle tended to have lost more value than the improved properties. Then we're going to look at what we know about 2 markets, kind of a local market and then a more of a macro market, a regional market. And we want to know what position, for example, which phase is the market currently in. So where I've put a 3 right here, we'd have to go back and look at cycles and see that it would be in an expansionary. That's where we're saying it is. It's in here. It's in this phase right now. Okay. Then we want to know the cycle period. And I might say, well, it's 5 years. So what, I'm going to keep flipping back here a minute. That's a little aggravating. So I'm saying from this point to this point, I believe is about 5 years. And then the next question is, what is the total cycle swing? And I've entered % here. So let's go back and see what we're talking about. What we're talking about, the value from here all the way up to the top, this value from here to here, the value that it changes during the cycle, that's the total cycle swing. Now, where does the appraiser get this information? Well, we're going to have to learn to look back historically, and we're going to have some help and some education by two parties. One is our basic economists, and the other is by some of the data companies that have been gathering data from as far back as in the 80s. They're going to have to help us chart these things and look at them, and we're going to have to learn to think about local markets and have reasons and a little more understanding, but we're not going to get this. Appraisers can't do this today, but we're very close to being able to do it with the help of these other parties. Then we're going to tell the same thing about the cycle. In this case, the macro market, which could be the regional or national. The current position I've got here is a 5. Cycle period is 15. Total swing 15. And we've got here 180. 180 is our term months, 180 months, 15 years. And the remaining economic life is 40%. That helps us to include our depreciation into this consideration, because if 30% of the value is land, then 70% is improvements, and we think there's 40 years left, so we can take straight line improvements or depreciation to that. So I'm going to run this, and this charts to me where value or market price might be over time. Okay, market price might be. Now we know we really don't know what it is out 60 months from now, 5 years from now. We don't really know that, but there's a higher probability that if we consider where we are in these cycles, that we're going to have a better idea than just using a point value for underwriters to use. Now, once the appraisers provide this information, we're going to stop. We're going to let the underwriters do this part. We're just going to give them the information that we feel comfortable with. Now, market cycles can change. We could predict some market cycles, and maybe there's some plant closings, and we say, wow, we were for a while. Let's go here and look again. We could say, wow, we were at 3 really expanding, but the markets have closed. We've jumped to 7 right now. We went from 3 to 7, so now we got to set back up. Well, that's what you call current, getting current information from the appraiser. So anyway, we have basically where our collateral might be expected to be. So we can take then, we have 250 up here. We can go over here and say, let's say then someone wants to borrow 250 at 5% for 180 years. I'm going to set this. So we can see there's a payoff because it's straight line. Amortization, it's not it's over 180 months, but it's not what am I trying to say? It's not a variable interest rate, so we can kind of project it. But the neat thing is now we can overlay the two. I can hit this, and I can see that the payoff here in the very first is the payoff is lower than the collateral. So this is good to hear, but then it crosses. You see, then it dips. And then from here on down, it looks like we're okay. But there is a section here that worries us right in here. Now, I've set up a rating, a way to score this, and this is the risk. The higher it is, the worse it is. But there's a few things to look at when we think about this. One is let's go back to our cycle. If we're down here in 1, we expect things to get better, so that enables to consider that future values are probably going to go up, and that allows the that allows the lender to lend more when the market is down here. Okay, so it works anti-cyclical in a way. It says, well, the market's dead, so we're going to be able to lend more. Okay, when the market's up here in 4 and 5, then this process is actually going to lend a little bit less, because we're going to say, wow, the market's red hot. So it's actually going to tend to tone it down. Now, we don't want to stop the market from working. We just don't want to make it worse. So you can see then, and I've got a summary here. I don't know if this applies to us. Appraisers find current market price, net realizable collateral, land value, remaining economic life, and market cycle phase information. So this is the information that we would provide to the lender. A national provider would probably help us with the national or the macro housing cycle. So we get that information. Then note that general inflation was not considered. Okay, in this scenario was not considered. So this gives you an idea of some forward-thinking ideas. So moving forward, we would need to be a process that the appraisers would provide different information. The lenders would take it a little bit differently and handle it differently. We would have some data providers help us, and we would have some economists work with us. And in the end, we would look at something that's more, well, I want to say it's not a single point in time, but the appraiser doesn't provide it. The appraiser just provides more information. So the question is then, is this something that appraisers can do or should be doing? Would it help lenders? So that's it for this video.